Hey, friends. I'm really glad I can be here with you, and I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas. I hope you've had a great holiday season so far. This is one of my favorite times of the Christmas season, the time between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. I know that for some people, this time is filled with more obligatory family meetings than anyone should possibly have to endure. And for others, this is a really lonely time where there doesn't seem to be anything to do. For me growing up, this week was the best part of the Christmas holiday season. It became that way for a very particular reason. My parents immigrated from England in September of 1967, exactly 1 week after they got married. My dad had lived in Canada as a teenager, so he had a few friends here, but my mom had never lived anywhere other than the northern part of England, where she grew up in a city called Huddersfield. The move to Canada was a huge deal for her, not only because she was moving to a new country where she didn't know anybody, but also because it was at the beginning of a long, cold winter like she'd never experienced before. Despite meeting and befriending people who would become lifelong friends for them, those first few years were really difficult for my mom. She felt very isolated and extremely lonely. That first Christmas, the first one away from home, was a particularly difficult time for her. The shops carried different foods. The traditions were unfamiliar. Nothing looked the same, and there was no family and only a few friends to celebrate with. It was just the two of them, and they were starting from scratch. But she loved my dad, and Canada is an awesome place to live. So over time, they adjusted, and when holidays happened, they started to make their own traditions, borrowing from each of their family's traditions and creating new ones for themselves. With time and the arrival of 3 children, Christmas became a particularly significant family time for us. After the rush of getting ready for Christmas and organizing church cantatas and plays and musicals and Christmas Eve services, my family was just able to rest and spend some time together for the whole week between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. We had nowhere to rush to, and we could just spend some time by ourselves doing what we wanted to do or playing games together, watching movies. What was once the most loneliest of times became the best family time for us 5. It was amazing. As I've grown up, I've continued to value this time, and I would now describe this time as Christmas liminal time. Times are periods of times in between events. They're periods of pause where the decompression or the recovery from what happened before simultaneously exists with the hope and anticipation of what's coming next. The Bible recounts many stories that contain liminal time. The first and perhaps my favorite is Genesis 1 verse 2, which says that after God created the heavens and the earth, his spirit hovered over the waters. It's almost like having set the stage for what's about to come, God slowed down, and for a second, in excited pause, he was anticipating what he was going to do. I love that image of God pausing, taking a deep breath before starting the next stage of his creation. The liminal time that I've been thinking about lately comes as part of the Christmas story, though, but it might not be an obvious part of the story. I've been thinking about the time after the shepherds leave and before Mary and Joseph flee from Herod to Egypt to start their life there. Now, I know that I complain a lot about the busyness and craziness before Christmas, and I assume that many of us get to Christmas Day completely exhausted. But I want to remind us of what Mary and Joseph had to go through during the time that we now call Christmas. First of all, Mary had to wrestle with what it meant to be a pregnant virgin, while processing the reality that she was going to be the mother of the Messiah. Joseph had to wrestle with the reality that Mary was pregnant without him and prepare himself for the complications that was going to cause within the Jewish community. Mary and Joseph had a long, difficult journey to make to Bethlehem for the census, and they had to travel in the middle of the winter in the late stages of pregnancy. When they did arrive in Bethlehem, it was overcrowded and busy, and they couldn't find any decent accommodations, so they had to settle for the lower floor of a house where they shared the space with animals. A scared teenage Mary gave birth to her first child in those less than ideal circumstances, helped by people she would have probably just met, with no family or support network around her. Sometime soon after giving birth, they would have been visited by shepherds who had been visited by a host of angels singing glory to God in the highest. The shepherds would have been curious and excited to see this baby that they'd been told about that was going to change the world. But I'm sure it was the last thing that Mary needed so soon after giving birth to Jesus. That's what happened to Mary and Joseph leading up to and just after the birth of Jesus. Their story puts my selfish, superficial, pre-Christmas busyness worries into perspective. I don't think I have anything to complain about. What I've been thinking about, though, is what happens next in this story. After the shepherds leave and the place that they're staying is cleaned up from childbirth. After those who helped with Mary's delivery return to their lives and they leave them alone. After the fatigue of a long journey and of birthing a child, what did they do? My hope is that this was liminal time for them. Like I said earlier, a time of waiting where decompression and recovery from what happened before happens simultaneously with the hope and anticipation of what's coming. With hindsight, we know that their liminal time ends with an unexpected and sudden escape to Egypt after a visit from the Magi. But however long their liminal time lasted, my hope is that in that time, Mary and Joseph were able to rest and process all that had happened over the previous 9 months. And I hope that at the same time they were able to look ahead to they were about to start, a new life together as a family, but also as front row participants of the unveiling of the Messiah. What a great time of anticipation. I hope that time they could just pause and take a deep breath. Now, I know that we'll never really know what Mary and Joseph did after the birth of Jesus. And I know that my parents' experience that led to my favorite part of Christmas pales in comparison to what they experienced. But I hope it's a reminder to us all of the importance of intentionally slowing down at this time of year. We've just spent 4 weeks focusing on the Advent, the anticipation of Jesus' birth. If you're anything like me, though, it's been too busy to really process what that actually means to me and my family, certainly in the current situation we're in. For myself, I want to take this time between Christmas Day and the celebration of New Year's to spend some time thinking about what I'm hopeful for, to meet up with anyone that I think I might need to make peace with, to make time to do the things that I enjoy, and to prioritize spending time with the people that I love and care for. I know that some people, the week between Christmas and New Year's is not a liminal time. Many people have to work, and there isn't a big difference between a normal work week and the week between Christmas and New Year's. Others are legitimately busy with activities, so there's not a lot of extra time. But for those of you who are able, even just for an evening or a morning, my prayer is that you will set aside a few hours to just pause and take a deep breath. In that time, I encourage you to reflect on the hope, the peace, the joy, and the love that were incarnated in the person of Jesus, whose birth we celebrate this time of the year. I hope that you enjoy the rest of this Christmas season, and I pray that this liminal time will help you to focus on the peace, the joy, the love, and the hope that comes through Jesus. Thanks for joining us today.